How many of you have heard the saying, work really hard and eventually you'll become successful? Unfortunately, this isn't the case, and the reason why is the normal distribution. Now, because of the normal distribution, in every single field that you have, the hyper successful individuals in this area belong to the top 1% of people. So for example, your Elon Musks, your Beyoncés, and your Mary Bararas. All of these people occupy the top 1% of each individual thing that they are in. So the normal distribution is a mathematical concept. Essentially, what it looks at is how does data actually get represented and how it's placed in the real world. We use this quite a fair bit inside of like social sciences and things like that. But what we can find is that the majority of things in the real world are normally distributed. When you look at IQ scores or you look at heights inside of the world, what you're going to see is that the majority of the people fall around the middle and not many people fall on the very low ends and the very, very high ends. Now, this normal distribution exists in every single field that you could ever possibly imagine. That goes for business, for finance, for musical talent. The reason why this relates to success is that the people that you see and you idolize, your Ali Abdaals, your Steve Jobs, your Karen Lynch's, all of these people occupy the top 1% of that particular field. It does not really matter. So basically, this is what a normal distribution graph looks like. Essentially, it's somewhat of a bell shape. And what we can do is we can separate the middle. This mean we can separate with standard deviations. It's basically how spread out is all of the data. The bigger the standard deviation, the more spread out. The smaller the standard deviation, the less spread out the data is. Now, there is a theory inside of the normal distribution wherein 67% of the data will lie within one standard deviation of the mean, 95% of the data will be 2 standard deviations away, and 99.7% of the data will lie 3 standard deviations from the mean. 99.7% of people in a particular field are going to be very, very close towards the mean, so you're going to be about average. And what we know in these hyper elite things, the average never becomes hyper successful. I'm probably pretty average inside of basketball. The average person will never make it to the NBA. These are the things that we kind of have to think about when we're talking about success. So typically inside of a field, the top 1% or 3 standard deviations from the average person, these are the people who are going to be hyper successful inside of a field. The other people are just around average and they won't necessarily get that hyper success that we see on social media and that we kind of glorify and idolize. Now, if you're thinking that's not that difficult to get to, the top 1%, that doesn't sound too bad. But let's really visualize this. Let's say we had a football field. If we had a football field filled all the way, all of the seats are filled up, how many of those people do you think are going to be successful? If we took 0.3% of the football stadium, only 136 of them are going to be hyper successful. Now, that sounds like a lot of people, but if we flip that number around, it's going to be 45,363 people will not be hyper successful in their lifetime. That is an excruciatingly small amount of people who eventually become hyper successful. Now, in every single field that we can look at, we can apply this, whether it's medicine, whether it's law, whether it's YouTube, basketball, all of these different domains will have a normal distribution curve looking at how much skill does someone have and the ability for them to be hyper successful. And unfortunately, the fact of the matter is a lot of people will not be successful in the domain that they pick, no matter how hard they work. For example, for me, I'm a short 5'7". No matter how hard I work, I am never going to be able to work or play in the NBA. I've accepted that. But does that mean you can't get really, really good at a skill? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you probably won't get to a level where you're part of the top 1%, where you're going to make billions and trillions of dollars from this particular skill. Because in every domain, there is these people. You have your Usain Bolts, you have your Steve Jobs, all of these people who are hyper successful in the domain that they've picked, they have the ability to do so based on the advantages that they have. Now, not everyone has them, and that's okay. Another example that we can use and we can talk about is here on YouTube. I've totally accepted the fact that me making this YouTube channel, I'm probably not going to be hyper successful. I'm okay with the fact that I'm never going to have 100 million subscribers. It's probably something that I'm not built for. I don't have that hyper advantage like PewDiePie where I'm naturally charismatic, got into the game early, etc., etc. I think I don't have that in me. And that's okay. I'm okay with having an audience, sharing things and changing people's lives on a small scale. I don't need to have this hyper succession in order to be happy, in order to be successful from my own definition. So does that mean that we should just give up on our hopes and dreams and never pursue anything because it's pointless anyway, because we have this normal distribution and we're never going to be part of that 1%? No, not at all. We should not do that. That is a very, very sadistic way to live. What it does mean though is that in this lifetime, you kind of have to develop your own purpose and be able to quit when you have the ability to. When you notice that something is just not your domain and that you're just not going to be part of the top 50%, let alone the top 1%. Maybe you can just do it in your free time because you really enjoy it, like I'm doing right now for YouTube. You don't have to be hyper successful in every single little thing that you do. Maybe in life, your goal is not to be the next Michael Jordan or the next Beethoven. You don't have to be this hyper successful person in order to live a very happy and meaningful life. The most important thing that you can do is to define your own success, live life on your terms, and make success whatever you want it to be. Don't make it what someone else has on social media or otherwise, and don't crave what other people have. Be content, be happy with the life that you have. If you want to see more concepts that will change your life, make sure to check out this playlist right here, or I've got some other videos right here that you should watch as well. I'll see you over there.